Open your hearts for our Reverend Keith Horwitz, again speaking to the theme of the joy and courage of being yourself.
Good morning, Agape. I think I'm going to use the crutch. Good morning. Yes, the topic this evening is the joy and the courage of becoming and being yourself. And when I think about that, I think that's life. That's what we're here to do, to be ourselves, to embody the truth of who we are, to embody what we always talk about here, that we are born in the image and likeness of God. And what does that mean? What does that mean as it's lived through our beingness? To actually experience that, and I ask that not as an intellectual question, but as a question to be experienced through our lives. For me, the path of mysticism. Mysticism is the way to actually be in the world, but not of it, if you really want to experience joy, not the kind of joy, the superficial joy that we get from baubles and things, but really feel bliss, to feel nirvanic bliss coursing through your beingness, then it's time to surrender to who we are and to allow ourselves to truly become that. But how do you do that? How do you do that? It's great in theory, but experience is where it all lies. And the path of mysticism says that we have to honor the laws of nature and to have an understanding of the laws and the language of God. For when we start to embody that, when we start to understand that, that's when we start to really evolve into experiencing the bliss. One of my favorite mystics of all time is George Washington Carver, because he not only was a magical and mystical being and did so much good for this planet, but he left a legacy. He left a legacy of how we can understand more of who we are. And that legacy was to commune with spirit. He was a deeply spiritual being, a mystic, that the legacy or the roadmap that he left us was that he would commune with spirit, go into meditation, go into prayer, get into the field. He knew that everything was energy. Everything was also information encoded in the energy. And so he wanted to bring forth gifts into the world. So he, was known as the man who spoke with the flowers, or the peanut man, or the scientist, a beautiful being. But he would go and he would commune and he would ask the peanut, reveal to me your gifts, reveal to me your secrets. And that information in the prayer field, in the meditation field would come to him, and he would journal and he'd go and he'd run the tests, and lo and behold, the peanut was right. And we were able to benefit from all of the science that he brought into the world through the pathway of mysticism. And when we allow ourselves to explore that and use that same roadmap in our own lives, we have this beautiful gift that is our own universe. If you could imagine your energy body, the auric field, the morphogenetic field, the electromagnetic field that we walk in, we're so much more than just this body. We're this magnificent universe right here. And when we master what's going on with us, we start to master how to be in the world and really, really trip the light. And what I mean by that is, we have our physical body, we have our emotional body, we have our mental body, we have our spirit body, we have our karmic body, and we have our bliss body. And that's where the juice is, because that's where we're outside of time and space, where we really start to allow God to live through us. And when we start to have an understanding of what that means, we get bombarded. We are constantly in a two-way communication with spirit, but we don't always understand what that means. And one of the things is that we also have that resides within our energy field is our trauma body, or as Eckhart Tolle calls it, the pain body. And that's where we have kind of our cellular memory keeps a database of all of our beliefs, for good or for bad. But when they're involved in the bad part, there's this really magnificent mechanism called pain. And most of us don't like it. I'm not a big fan of it. But when we understand the gift of pain and the acronym of pay attention inside now means turn within. Turn within and let it set us free. This is how we set ourselves free, by turning within. Many years ago, shortly after I'd started my spiritual path, when I woke up, because for several decades I was asleep. And I was just living from the ego, and that I'll tell you, it can be fun for a little while you're partying and all that stuff, but it gets old. because I didn't understand. I'm actually now one of those people I used to make fun of. And which is crazy. But when we start to understand that when we can use, because the beauty of the universe, the beauty of spirit is that everything is good, and we were given the gift of pain. It's an alarm. All it is an alarm. It's an alarm like a fire alarm that's supposed to wake us up to something. And so one day, many years ago, I took my car in to get it serviced, and I started feeling adrenaline rushing through my body and a little bit of anxiety, but it was kind of low level, so I was used to that. That was kind of my normal operating, system. It didn't matter. I didn't really pay attention to it. I wasn't paying attention. And I got home after I dropped off my car, and I was waiting for it to be ready later in the day, and I had this headache. And I was about to go take some aspirin, and then I said, wait a minute, Keith, you've been practicing this for a couple years now, and what do? We want to read the energy. We want to be set free from it. So I'm like, okay, let me get my palm chakras activated, and I'm going to go to the place in my energy field, it's right here in my third eye, and I'm going to allow the pain to set me free. And what it told me, and this might not come as any big surprise, but I don't trust mechanics. And I used to think they'd just get in there, rip everything out, do a whole bunch of things, give you a bill for 3 times as much, and I don't know anything about cars, so what you gonna do? So that's where the anxiety was, and my body was telling me with the adrenaline rushing and that mental anguish and everything, and so I sat there and I allowed it to reveal to me, but it was deeper than not trusting mechanics. It was deeper. It was about not trusting life in general as being a benevolent place to be. I don't want to live in a world that isn't fun, that isn't filled with people that you can trust. And so it brought me to a choice point. Do I want to take the distrust of these people, because I've just, said all mechanics are evil, and do I want to take that, and what do I want to do about it? Do I want to suppress it, put it back down in my cellular memory, and allow that anxiety and that anguish to come up again, or do I want to liberate it? And so that choice was very clear to me, and I made the choice not from an intellectual, oh sure, who doesn't want to, love everyone and trust everyone. I had to get into my heart, and this is where some of the courage comes in, the courage to actually start to explore what's in that pain body. And the good news is, once we get everything out of there, then it's just bliss city. And so I let it go, and when I went back to pick up my car, not only was it less than the quote, but the mechanic said, oh, by the way, I found these other things, or I don't know, since I don't know about cars, but spark plugs or whatever, and he said they were a little corroded. He goes, I replaced them for free. And this wave of joy came running over me, and I was just like, wow, and it's like, it seems simple, but it was profound, and the ripple effect, the domino effect of the liberation that comes when you will release that from your pain body is exponential, because you're allowing a more intimate experience with yourself and the rest of the world. Don't we all want to live in a world where we love each other, where we trust each other, where we don't have to lock our doors? That's the kind of world, and maybe that's Pollyanna, but it's not. We create that world by the intention and our deliberate practice, our spiritual practices, and becoming familiar with our energy field, and becoming familiar, if you're one of those people who's an empath or clairsentient and you start feeling all kinds of energies, if you don't know what that is, it could drive you crazy. I was, plagued with being a hypochondriac when I was younger, because I didn't understand what was going on. I had panic attacks all the time. And when I understood that my energy body was reading other people's energy, and I was able to take command and take dominion over my own beingness, everything changed. The panic attacks were gone. And so if you do have any of that, you probably are highly clairsentient. And it is a gift. It is a gift that allows you to understand and empathize and move to compassion. That's where we go, as we go into compassion. It's like, oh wow, I'm feeling something's going on in your energy, and that's off, and I can go into prayer and love you from there. And so, I could have chosen to go the path of ignorance. And if you look at the word ignorance at the root, you're gonna see ignore. And that's where we avoid these things. We don't want to look at the pain. We don't want to grow. And it was, let me tell you, ignorance is not bliss. And it was, it is far from it. And it was the 16th century British publisher Nicholas Ling, who said, "Ignorance is a voluntary misfortune." And A Course in Miracles says, "Do not make the mistake of believing that you understand what you perceive. For when you allow the Holy Spirit to interpret what you see, then you will truly understand." And that is about going within and allowing your soul to have its way with you. I so love my ego. Our ego's a great thing. It allows us to have really wonderful experiences. But allowing the soul to live through you, that is where it's at. And I still can't believe all these years later that I'm doing this. It's actually doing it. And you got to do the work. You got to take the classes. You got to do your prayer. You got to do your meditation. You've got to allow it until it becomes ceaseless. That was the first day I walked into Agape, and I heard, this was 2003. Do the math. When I walked in, and I didn't know anything. I just knew this was it. This was it. This was the place. And there's so much love and so much wisdom. And I heard ceaseless prayer, and I didn't really know a whole lot, but I just knew that was it. And it's been that journey ever since. And so I would just like to close with a prayer and just take this moment to turn within and how grateful I am to just be in this house of love, in the house of God, in the loving presence, knowing that we are all divine emanations of God and that we have said yes to being truly, like Reverend Michael always says, ever more and never less than who we truly are. I am grateful to know that we are all divine emanations of light, that we are that indwelling presence, and that we can allow ourselves, again, as Reverend Michael says, we can allow ourselves to be pulled by the vision, and thereby we can forego being pushed by the pain. But at least if we do have to experience some of that, we can allow it to liberate us. I'm grateful to know that every single person that can hear my voice, every single person on this planet has everything they need to triumph. We have everything. We have all the power. We have all the resources. We have all the talents. We have all the gifts. I'm grateful that we have all said yes to the path of mysticism, to the path of liberation, to the path of freedom, to the path of love, joy, and adventure, and fun. And I allow this all to be on all of our behalf, and I simply let it be. We claim it. We own it. We accept it by saying, and so it is.
So it is. Reverend Keith, the Reverend Keith Horwitz. Outstanding.